Hi, this video covers the solution to the fourth review exercise for the end of the semester. A study in mice compared rates of insulin resistance between mice fed 4 different diets. All of the diets had the same amount of calories and the same percentage of calories coming from fats and sugars. The first group included 25 mice that ingested soybean oil and fructose. The second group included 20 mice that ingested soybean oil and sucrose. The third group included 25 mice that ingested coconut oil and fructose. The fourth group included 20 mice that ingested coconut oil and sucrose. And there were not equal numbers of mice in each of the groups. You can tell that by reading the question, but just to kind of give us a reminder. And in total, there were 90 mice, and each mouse was assigned to one of these diets. Now, we're also told that 60% of mice who ingested soybean oil and fructose developed insulin resistance. 70% of mice who ingested soybean oil and sucrose developed insulin resistance. 36% of mice who ingested coconut oil and fructose developed insulin resistance. And 35% of mice who ingested coconut oil and sucrose developed insulin resistance. So first of all, I'm going to start by just sort of like, here's the information we were given. Right? What proportion of the 90 mice are in each of the groups. And so I guess this is the proportion or the probability if I randomly chose a mouse that they'd be in that group. And then they also give us the conditional probabilities. Right? If I randomly choose a mouse and it's in the soy and fructose group, what's the chance that it had insulin resistance? 60%. Right? So there's our sort of information that was given to us. So part A asks, what percentage of all of the mice in the study developed insulin resistance? So essentially what we need to do is the probability of developing insulin resistance is going to be the probability of developing insulin resistance and being on the soy and fructose diet plus the probability of developing insulin resistance and being on the soy and sucrose diet plus the probability of developing insulin resistance and being on the coconut oil and fructose diet plus the probability of developing insulin resistance and being on the coconut oil and sucrose diet. And essentially all I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply these proportions by the conditional probabilities. So this is the probability of insulin resistance given soy and fructose times the probability of soy and fructose plus the probability of insulin resistance given soy and sucrose times the probability of soy and sucrose plus the probability of insulin resistance given coconut oil, nut, and fructose times the probability of being a mouse with coconut oil and fructose. And then finally adding in the probability of insulin resistance given a coconut oil and sucrose diet times the portion of mice who are in the coconut oil and sucrose diet group. So I'm taking 25 over 90 times 0.6 plus 20 over 90 times 0.7 plus 25 over 90 times 0.36 plus 20 over 90 times 0.35, and all in all proportion who developed insulin resistance is 0.5. So that would be 50%. Okay, part B says, given that a mouse developed insulin resistance, what is the probability that the mouse's diet included soybean oil? So now for part B, we're thinking, okay, given that they developed insulin resistance, what's the probability that they, friends, had a soybean diet? So this is going to be the probability of having a soybean diet and insulin resistance divided by the probability of insulin resistance. We just found this. It's 0.5. Now the probability of having soybean oil and insulin resistance is the probability of having soybean oil and insulin resistance among those eating fructose plus the probability of having soybean oil and insulin resistance, among those with the sucrose group there. Right, so I'm going to be looking at like probability of insulin resistance given soy and fructose times the proportion with soy and fructose plus probability of insulin resistance given soy and sucrose times the probability of being in that soy and sucrose group. Sorry, it's getting a little small. But this is coming out, so I've got my 60% of those in the soy and fructose times the proportion who were in there was 25 out of 90, plus the proportion in the soy and sucrose group was 0.70, times the proportion that were in that group, which was 20 over 90, divided by the 0.5, which was my proportion with insulin resistance, gives us 0.6444. And so there's our answer to part B. Okay, let's see. Now, part C asks us, given that a mouse's diet included soybean oil, what's the probability that the mouse developed insulin resistance? So again, I'm looking for the probability of soy and insulin resistance, but now I'm dividing by the proportion who had soy. This is going to give me the same numerator that I had before, 0.60 times 25 over 90 plus 0.70, 20 over 90. In total, out of the 90 mice, 20 plus 25 is 45 over 90 had soybean oil. So this actually, again, is going to come out to 0.6444. And I do just want to make a note. It's not usually the case that the probability of A given B equals the probability of B given A. Usually that's not true. It only happens to be true in this case because we had an equal division between the soy and the not soy, and an equal division between the insulin resistance and the not insulin resistance, and that was just a coincidence, not something that would always happen that way. Okay, and let's see. Our last part of this question says, given that a mouse's diet included fructose, what is the probability that the mouse developed insulin resistance? So now part D. Given, fructose, what's the probability of insulin resistance? This is a very similar type of problem. We're going to need to find the probability of fructose and insulin resistance divided by the proportion who had fructose. there were 25 with soy and fructose and 25 with coconut oil and fructose. So in total we had 50 out of 90 was the proportion that had fructose. Those having fructose and insulin resistance, here's the fructose parts. It's going to be 0.6 times the 25 over 90. Plus 0.36 times 25 over 90. Which equals 0.48. So that is the answer to question 4. Thanks.